Once again, I welcome you to Suspain YouTube channel. Today, I will be discussing with you a special AWS service called Amazon Athena. Amazon Athena is an interactive query service that allows you to query a large volume of data in the petabyte scale so as to extract certain information from it using a simple SQL languages. I'm going to be walking you through a couple of slides just to look at the high level overview of this service. And after that, I'm going to walk you through a simple demo on how to use this service. Let's go right in. As I mentioned earlier, Amazon Athena is a powerful interactive query service that is designed to analyze a large volume of data efficiently. It allows you to query large volume of data using simple SQL language. Amazon Athena, like I said, use SQL query on large data set without needing complex infrastructure. It simplifies data analysis by providing user-friendly interface. By the time we get onto the AWS console, you go to get to understand how simple the interface is, user-friendly, and you can easily within few seconds or minutes, configure or set up your Athena for use. Amazon Athena is a serverless service. And what does that mean? It means you do not need to configure or set up any server in order to use Athena. It is out of the box and it's been 100% managed by AWS. So you don't have to configure a server and you don't need any complex configuration in order to set it up. Amazon Athena is built on open source framework. And one of those framework is the Trino, and it's also built on Presto engine as long as and also on an Apache Spark. So you might want to do a little bit of research just to know what these open source frameworks are, but it's not very important to this discussion. So I just mention it as it is. So Amazon Athena is very flexible as it integrates easily with over 25 data sources. So no matter what your data format is, either it's in CVS or it's in .xl or it's in .html, .md, whatever data source format that you are able to use Amazon Athena to work with any of this, and that shows how flexible this tool or this service is. Amazon Athena also work seamlessly with another AWS service or tool called AWS Glue. AWS Glue easily integrate with Amazon Athena by go into the data source and crawl or get or extract those information onto Amazon Athena for easy processing. So it integrates easily with each other. So when I say integrate, I mean Amazon Athena and AWS Glue work hand in hand to make the process very seamless. Amazon Athena is a region-specific service, meaning that you configure it based on the region where you are working, the AWS region where you are working. However, it can access data from other regions. Please bear that in mind. Also, you can set up access control on Amazon Athena using your ACL, your access control list. You can use your IAM policies, and you can also use S3 bucket policies to control the amount of access or amount of data that can be accessed from using Athena. The pricing model is very simple, just like every other AWS service. It is pay as you go. It is being charged as pay per query. So the amount you're going to be charged is based on the amount of data that's being scanned during any query. So it's very cost effective. And Most of the common use case include Athena federated query and preparing data for machine learning model in reconciling big data and so on and so forth. So it's a very flexible and very important tool, and we are going to see how we can uh, we can make use of this tool. So we have come to the end of the slide, and now we are going to jump onto the demo to see how this tool can be make can be make it can be put into use. In trying to do this, we are going to jump onto our AWS console, and there we are going to be setting up uh, Amazon Athena. Now, before you can set up Amazon Athena, we need certain things has to be put in place. One, there must be a data source. A data source in this case will be like a container where the data is being stored. And usually, and for the purpose of this demo, we are going to be use AWS S3. We're going to be use Amazon S3 to store the data. And when the data is stored, after Athena has worked on this data, there's also a need for a place where the result is going to be kept. So we are going to be having two S3 buckets, one that will act as the source data, and the other one that will act as the result, as the container for for the result of Athena query. Then we now go onto Athena and then put this into use. Now let's jump onto our AWS console to solve this. So this is my um, AWS console. So we're going to go to S3, and now we are in S3 console. We are going to create a bucket. Know that your bucket has to have a unique name. So for the purpose of this, I'm going to call it um, COVID, and I will tell you why I call it COVID. COVID bucket data source. COVID bucket data source. I'm going to keep this into the default. I'm going to check this out to give it public access. And I'm just going to keep every other thing as default. And I'm going to create the bucket. And like I said, we need the second bucket where the result is going to be stored. So I'm going to go ahead again and create another bucket. And this one, I'm going to call it COVID bucket data, and I'm going to call it results. Just in the same way, I'm going to uncheck this to give it public access. I'm going to acknowledge it, and I will just create the bucket. Now I have the two buckets created. These are the two buckets. I can filter it. So these are the two buckets. One is going to be the source data where the raw data is going to be stored, and the other one is where the result is going to be kept. So now we are going to go into the source bucket and upload the data. Now, before we upload the data, let me quickly show you the data we want to work on. Now, if you see on the screen here, this is a data that was collected a few years ago during COVID-19. This was collected in some part of India, and this data recorded the number of people that that tested positive to COVID-19 from different cities in India. So if you look at the heading of the columns, the column headers here, you see we have a patient number, we have the state patient number, we have patient announced, estimated. We have all of this header that was used to define this table. So we're going to be working on this table to extract some good information from it. So now this table is what we are going to upload into our S3 bucket. So let's go back to our S3 bucket. So I'm back in my S3 bucket. I'm going to upload the data. So I will upload the data. Now, before you upload the data, we need to create a subfolder inside the source bucket. So that is what I'm going to do now. I'll just go a step backward. I'm going to create a folder, and I'm going to call that folder COVID. I'll call it COVID, and I'll just create the folder. So I've created a folder in the source bucket, and I'm going to go ahead and upload my data into that folder. So I will click on Add File, then I will select Raw Data, and I will just scroll down and click on Upload. Now this data has been uploaded into the S3 bucket, which is acting as the source data. Now we'll now go onto Athena, and I'm going to open it in another tab. So we are going to go to Athena now to set up our AWS Athena. Now this is the Athena console. So the first thing you want to do is to come to the settings, click on Manage, and if you look at the top here, it says Query Resort Location and Encryption. This is where the bucket that we're going to keep the Athena resort is going to be. So we click on Browse, and we select the bucket that we have created for the resort. So this is the resort. Then we can just leave everything here into the default for the purpose of this. And then we just click on Save. Now we have created the source bucket. Then we go back to the editor. So the next thing you want to do now is to create a table. And remember, in the theory section, I did mention that Amazon Athena supports a flat table type. So we are going to create a table here, which is a form of a database where our data is going to be queried. So to do that, I have already written a SQL language here that is going to do that for us. So I'm going to show us right away. So this is the query, and all we just need. So I'm going to copy the query now, and I'm going to explain to you what this query does. So I've copied this query, and I'm just going to paste it right here. And what is this query doing? If you remember when I show you the raw data, this query is creating a table, which is a database. The name of the table here is called COVID, but I don't want to call it COVID this time. I want to call it COVID database. No, COVID data store. This is what I want to call it. So COVID data store, that will be the name of the table. And if you remember, those column headers are what we have here. This is the column header, patient number, state patient number. If you remember, these are those things that we have at the top of our column. And what you have in front of them are actually the data type that are going to be stored there. You know, we have different data type. We have string, we have integers, we have boolean. So, but in this case, this is just telling you the data, the data and the type of data that are going to be stored in there. So one thing we just need to change here will be our source bucket. So we have to change this bucket here into our source bucket. So I will go to my bucket now and copy the name of my bucket. This is the name of my bucket here. I'll just copy it, and I'm going to take it to I'm going to replace it. Make sure you replace it in between the quote. Now I've replaced it. And what I'm going to do now is to click on Run. So if you look at it, it says completed. And if you look right down here, a table has been created called COVID data store. And if you click on the drop down, you're going to see that this table contains all the headers and the type of data that's going to be stored in them, just as we have defined it here. Now a table has been created. Now it is time for us to query this data. So don't forget the data has been stored in S3. Now on this side here, on the left-hand side here, you can see this is just telling you the AWS data catalog, which is going to be working in integration with your Amazon Athena. And of course, make sure your database is selected as default. That's the default database that we have here. And I'm going to be working on this table that has been created, which is the COVID data store. So I'm going to use this plus sign here to open another query tab. And I'm going to set out a query. Also, I have a query that I've already put here. And I'm going to explain to you what this query is going to do. I've copied the query and I'm just going to paste it here. And what is this query doing? This query is saying that you go into the default database. Don't forget, this is our database default. Go into the default database, look for a table called COVID data. But don't forget, in our own case, it is COVID data store. So I have to change this one to what? The COVID data store. So what I'm actually saying here is go into the default database, look for a table called COVID data store, then look for where the gender is M, which stands for male, and also in the same, you can see the and sign, which is a boolean. And also in the same default database, look for a table called data store, where the city where the COVID-19 is being detected is Bangalore. So what this statement is actually looking for is looking for a male, a male, uh, a male person in Bangalore that is being COVID-19 positive. That is the summary of this code. So I'm going to come here and click on run. And you can see the run is completed and you can see the result down here. This is telling us that in that big data sheet that I showed you earlier, 30 male have been detected to have contacted COVID-19 in Bangalore. So you can see how simple and how effective Amazon Athena is in data query. And if you need, let's assume you have downloaded this data for a higher amount of time, you can actually download it. I can first come here and say, okay, let's go back to the CVS file. Let's see the CVS file and let's do a further query. Let's assume I'm looking for a female in, I don't want to use Bangalore this time. I'm looking for, don't forget, this is what we are querying. We are querying the detected city. So I'm looking for Gurugram. I want to see the number of female in Gurugram. Okay, now let me say, I don't want us to get 0. Okay, let me look for number of female in Agra. So I can easily go to my and edit this. So I'm looking for gender female, and I want the city to be Agra. I'm sure. I believe I got the, and I'll click on run. So you can see it now. It's telling us that there are 3 female that contacted COVID-19 in the city called Agra. So this is how simple it is to use Amazon Athena to query your data set and able to get some further information from it. I believe this has helped you in understanding this wonderful AWS tool called Amazon Athena. Please, if you love this video, do like it and subscribe for you to see more of this video. I hope you enjoyed this lecture and I will see you in the next lecture. Bye-bye.